Let's take you live to Sydney now. The New South Wales State Emergency Services are providing an update for those mid-north coast areas and the northern rivers.
This weather event is tracking south, as we know, and that will impact different communities along the east coast in different ways. And finally, when it comes to donations, I really want to say thank you to the people of New South Wales and right across Australia and indeed the globe who have dug deep so far to donate to these communities that have been so terribly hit by this natural disaster over the last few weeks. But I'd really appreciate it if people could use the official channels in order to donate, because this ensures that we get the right help to the right people at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and good morning, everyone. And while the rain has eased, moderate to major flooding continues for many rivers across the northern rivers down into the mid-north coast. We still have major flooding on numerous rivers across the north. That includes the Wilsons, the Richmond, the Clarence, and also the Orara River. And we have moderate flood warnings continue on the Hastings, Nambucca, and also further south towards the Macleay, Ballinger and Kalang rivers. So even though in some communities the sun is coming out this morning, there is still major flooding ongoing through numerous rivers. And as you heard earlier, while the peak around the Lismore was late yesterday at 11.4, we are still experiencing major flooding through that community and further communities downstream as well. And I'll touch on that now. So Lismore, as we said, has peaked earlier, but major flooding is continuing this morning. And later today, we should see the water start falling below the levee, which will stop the inundation, at least in the CBD. But of course, still many homes around the Lismore area, both in North and South Lismore, will continue to experience flooding today. Further downstream, as we move into the Richmond and Wilsons River, Corrokai is experiencing major flooding right now, likely to peak during the day and then slowly ease into tonight. And further downstream at Woodburn as well. We could also experiencing major flooding there later this morning into this afternoon. Now, on the Clarence River, we're seeing the peak around the Grafton area as we speak right now at major flood levels through the community of Grafton, and communities and towns further south of Grafton downstream of the Clarence River will need to be prepared for moderate to major flooding as the water makes its way downstream of the Clarence River. Moving further south as well, we do have numerous moderate flood warnings around the Coffs Harbour area with, as I mentioned, Hastings, Nambucca, also experiencing minor to moderate flooding. And we did see 50 to 150 millimetres around there yesterday and overnight. But thankfully, the rain has eased. We're seeing the showers continue into the Hunter area and lower parts of the mid-north coast, but we're not expecting heavy or torrential rainfall, just a continuation of these showers coming in. So while that's good news, the rain has eased, there's still a lot of water to move through the rivers, catchments and streams, particularly in the northern rivers and also the mid-north coast. So communities that live on or near, particularly the Wilsons, Richmond, Clarence and Orara rivers, particularly downstream where the flood peaks are occurring, you still need to stay up to date with the latest forecast and warnings as that water continues to move downstream and could lead to inundation of homes, properties, businesses and farmland, particularly near and adjacent to any rivers, creeks and streams. Now, as this low has moved offshore, the rain threat has eased, but now we're transitioning into a wind and damaging surf threat. So a severe weather warning is current from Kempsey all the way down to the Victorian border, and that's for many of our coastal communities. And that is for abnormally high tides and damaging surf. As the low deepens offshore, we're going to see the winds increase along the coastal communities for today and tomorrow with strong and gusty winds. And the possibility of the odd tree down as well with these winds. The soils are already saturated, making it easier for trees to come down. But the main concern will be abnormally high tides and also coastal erosion as these large seas and swell, particularly for our south-facing beaches, are likely to bring coastal erosion and also inundation of low-lying areas, particularly for properties right on the beach.
That's where we leave that media conference from the State Emergency Service, but that does continue on the Weather Channel if you need the updates there. What we heard there from the Weather Bureau is there are major flooding events right up and down the east coast in northern New South Wales and on the mid-north coast. And once that flood threat is over, it will give way to damaging winds and quite dangerous surf as well. So keep an eye on those warnings.